Before C.J. Donaldson, before Letty Brown, was one of the greatest running backs in the history of West Virginia University. And we've got him on the show tonight to talk about a myriad of things. We're going to talk about TCU. We're going to talk about a lot to do with him and what he's been doing since football ended. We'll talk a lot about that right after the word from this sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory today across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you.
This is for Cameron.
What is up, guys, and welcome in. My name is Mountaineer Paul, and you have landed yourself here again at another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. And guys, it's another milestone day for us. We have Rim Baker on. We dropped that video yesterday. It's one of the best performing videos of all time for this show. Couz, we've got another guy on today who, in my opinion, we're probably just as excited about, if not more excited, and that is West Virginia legend, and I say that with the capital L, Steve Slaton. How's it going, Steve?
Going well, man. Thanks for that beautiful introduction, man. Appreciate it.
Well, it's well-deserved, you know. I'm 38 years old, so that was the golden years for me, was when you were playing.
Me too.
And Couz even said earlier, you know, your jersey is the only jersey he's ever owned. So, I mean, you know, a lot of us look back on those days, man, and just, gosh, man, the way you did Maryland, there's so many things we can bring up, you know, and reminisce about. And I think a lot of our fans are going to be excited to hear you talk about some of that stuff. You've got your own podcast. Real quick, can we get you to shout that thing out early in the show so people can know where to find you guys at?
Oh, yeah. So on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, it's the Burning Couch Podcast. It's me and my guy, Matty Stout. He's a podcast legend, as you'll say. But it's been one of those things we've been doing for a few years. And like you said, we're on YouTube now and trying to pick up some steam.
Awesome. And that just now ported over to YouTube pretty much. So you guys are just steadily trying to grow that thing, get it to the numbers you're doing on the podcast side of things, which are really, really good. So we're glad to see that. Real quick, guys, I wanted to launch this with the show. I just now started my membership package. I'm going to shout that out just really quick. So we've got two different tiers. We've got the Mountaineer Fanatic, and that's going to come with basically member shout outs and promised interactions with you guys as you guys tweet or comment in the comments. And then we got Mountaineer Insider Package, which are going to be anything I get intel wise. Once a month, we'll talk about that. We're going to do live streams together and watch some of the games. Also, member shout outs with that. So you guys have asked, I delivered. These are the two tiers I'm starting with. If you're interested in that, please click on those. We'd really appreciate it, guys. Let's get back to the interview with Steve, though. Okay, Steve, so you've obviously been doing this podcasting thing for a bit now. Can you take us back to, I mean, I remember like it was yesterday. I was so excited. You were just killing it with the Texans. Talk about that time after you were, you know, the Mountaineer crew was over. You're playing with the Texans. What happened? Why did your career come to a kind of a short ending there? Can you speak on that just a little bit?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things. As life as football. We're in a car crash pretty much every play. But I had a season-ending injury my second year, which I had a pinched nerve. It got fixed. It's one of those things to where a lot of players go through it, but it was one of those things to where it was the nail in the coffin for my season for years. So I got a couple years with the Texans and a couple years with the Dolphins.
Yeah, and that I think it was it might have been your second year. You really broke out at 1,300 yards.
So my rookie year was about 1,200. My rookie year. So I had a good year.
That might be the one.
My rookie year, yeah.
And really showed what you could do at that level. And you had guys, by the way. I mean, there was guys that you know, coming for that job. And I feel like you were the best back in that room. And had you not been injured, I don't think, I don't think you lose that job. That's just me. Arian Foster's special, but I mean, you were a little bit before him, so who knows what happens there. So you've moved into the podcasting thing. You're a dad now. Really interesting to hear you tell me about that the other day on X, talking about you got kids now. Are they involved in sports or anything like that?
Well, currently my middle child, he's playing basketball for his high school team. I think they're starting up in around November. My oldest, he likes to play sports, but he'd rather do it on his free time, not anything organized well. And my baby girl, she's looking to play soccer this year, so we'll see what she got.
Awesome.
Yeah, my youngest one, she's been playing basketball. She just started high school, and she doesn't want to play for the school because it's, she doesn't like the organized thing. She wants to do it on her own time at her own leisure. She doesn't like being tied down, man. So I'm like, man, you couldn't drag me off the court of the field when I was that age, man. Steve, man, Paul mentioned there earlier on, you're the only jersey I ever owned. I'm not a jersey guy, never was, but those years with you, Pat, and Owen and that group, man, those were the glory days for me. I'm a few years older than Paul, so I'm in that same age bracket. And, man, what a fun time to be a Mountaineer fan. And unfortunately, you didn't get to make any money off that jersey I bought because it didn't have your name on it. But I knew who it was, right? I knew number 10 was Steve Slaton. But that segues into what I want to ask you about. Man, how much money could you three guys have made in NIL back then, man? Wouldn't that have been cool?
Oh, it would have been great. It definitely would have been something to set your family up for, for a good while. But
absolutely,
hey, it's funny. It's one of those conversations we had, but hey, it wasn't in the cards, but made it on the back end.
Are you? I'm assuming you're a proponent of NIL then.
Oh, I think NIL is one of those things to where I think it needs to be adjusted a little bit, but I think it's a great thing for the players because they're putting their bodies on the line, and it's their name. That's who the fans come to see, even though it might be your favorite team, but those guys who put people on the stands.
Right.
We just saw it this past weekend, unfortunately, with Tyler Shuck. And just really heartbreaking for that kid who's had 3 straight season-ending surgeries or injuries. And it just breaks my heart to see it. He doesn't deserve it. Really wanted to see what he could do for the Red Raiders this year, and unfortunately he doesn't. He'll probably have to go pro this year unless he wants to come back yet again, probably play for another team. I think they're going to hand that thing to Morton now. But this is something I'm a nerd about. I was excited about. This running back room gets a lot of publicity, and, so many different bodies in that room. You go from Jaheim White to CJ to Justin. There's so many different ones. Obviously, Jalen. Who do you think mirrors what you did, if anybody, maybe nobody, the most? And can you talk about C.J. Donaldson specifically just a little bit? Because the second part of this question is, what do you think it is with this running back room right now that is the lack of explosive runs? Why is that happening? Is it the passing game? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, with CJ, yeah, definitely. Or I'll say who emulates. I think I might have been before my time, so I don't see if anybody really emulates. But I really do like CJ's game. I think he's a big body. He's only going to get better just because with more carries. I think what's happening with special plays is just, that we're not a run dominant offense yet. So that's one of those things that we had that we lived on the ground or running the ball. So I don't think this is for the offense right now. The defense is doing well, but the offense hasn't found their stride yet. I think hopefully for a year they can get CJ done because he is a big part of why we win and rushing for 100 yards every game.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting. One other player I wanted to mention, obviously you played with the great Dan Moses, and there's a center on this team who I didn't think another guy would come around that would maybe claim the title that Moses has had since he left, and that's the greatest center in WVU history. There's a couple guys. Zach Frazier, the way he has played over the course of his career, probably the least heralded guy. I mean, he just does it day in and day out. Can you talk about a little bit about Zach Frazier and Dan Moses? Are they similar in your opinion at all, or are they two completely different kind of players?
I'll definitely say similar. I think you can see, cream does rise to the top. Playing with Dan was the guy that gave you his all every day, and you could see it in practice. He was, once we always say, once you step between those lines, it's time to get the job done. That's one of those things to where I'll say, Zach, I don't know him personally, but watching his game, he's out there. The big boy, big horses don't get all the love, but the running backs sure do love him.
Steve, man, do you ever? I know we're kind of bouncing around all over the place here, so hopefully that's okay.
Good.
Do you ever get back to Morgantown to watch a game, man, or when's the last time you were back?
I haven't been back in a while. Probably a couple years, maybe right before COVID. But they'll be here in Houston next week, so I think I'm gonna definitely catch that game. So it'll be good to see them. See them up front.
Awesome, good deal. Yeah, didn't you get? Have you been inducted into the West Virginia Hall of Fame? Right?
Yes. That was the last 2018. That was the last time I was there.
That's what I thought.
Hall of Fame. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
So, in my opinion, man, like I said, I've said this multiple times, you're the most explosive running back I ever saw. And you heard the story about Maryland and how they kind of slighted you in recruiting. And that really fed your fire. And especially when you played Maryland. I mean, it was I would love to see what'd you play them 3 times in your career?
Twice. I think
was it twice?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I think you might have been out one game or maybe there's just only 2 games. But can you talk a little bit about, because I've heard that story from only announcers. Can you talk about that a little bit? How they just, what happened there with Maryland and why you ended up with WVU and all that?
Yeah. It was just one of those things to where, recruiting process is something that's new. You only get to do once in your life unless you become a coach or a recruiter. It was, I committed to them for a good 6 months. I had random people calling me or reporters calling me, asking me if I had lost my scholarship. And it took me a good while to track down my recruiter. It's James Franklin, head coach for Penn State. So finally got him on the phone and talked to him. And he told me if they had an extra scholarship at the end of signing, I'll have it. So it was what Deion said was personal. Became personal.
Absolutely, man. So I would say nobody was rooting against Penn State week 1 more than you.
I was definitely rooting for them to lose, but hey, it was a good hard fought game. It's one of those things to where we're at now, we're finally putting the games together to win these games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll never forget the look on Coach Friedgen's face when you darted down the sideline. Literally like right by him for a long run. And the camera spent to him, and he's just like, man, how do we let this kid get away? It's awesome, man.
Recruiting can be a crapshoot. You never know what you're going to get, but I knew
that's true.
I had a vendetta against him.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's, as a competitor yourself, man, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that feeds you, right? It's that chip on your shoulder, man. I think every athlete's got it to a degree, all the successful ones anyway.
Yeah.
Because you've got to have something to feed you, man. Deion's a master at that, getting his guys to Michael Jordan. We saw the Last Dance documentary. He would just make crap up that don't even, just so he would have something to motivate him, man. And so that's pretty cool story there. What was it about West Virginia though? After all that happened, what was it about West Virginia that made you pick them over maybe some other schools that you could have chosen?
Well, I think West Virginia is very honest. They told me I could play running back. A lot of schools after, being rescinded from Maryland were going to put me on defense. And it was one of the schools that, hey, we're going to give me a chance to compete, and they like to run the ball a lot. So that was, a big thing for me. So having a chance to compete and playing a game I love.
And at the time, they had a 5-star recruit by the name of Jason Gwaltney on the roster. Yes. He's one of only 2 5-star I think we've ever assigned at West Virginia. If you're one of the star ratings guys.
Yeah.
Did that make you second guess it at all that, hey man, I may not get to play here, or did that just motivate you even more?
It motivated even more. I mean, because at the end of the day, we always got to compete. And you got to go and practice. So that's one of those things for where I came from, right outside of Philadelphia. It didn't. What did the 5 stars mean? It really didn't mean anything.
Right.
But just like I said, you just got to go and practice and play your heart out.
And I think it would probably, I wasn't there, but I would say it was probably pretty evident, pretty quick that you were the better running back. Don't want to slight Jason at all. Don't know the man at all. Not trying to, but history played out like it did for a reason. like you said, cream rises to the top. And for whatever reason, he didn't work out at West Virginia, and you did. Thank God, because the history would not be what it is without you, without Pat, without Owen, without that offensive line. And don't forget about those guys on the other side of the ball as well. I mean, it was just such a beautiful experience. And I just got a couple more players we want to talk about before we move on to TCU real quick. Two guys that stand out right now to me, and one, they're both killing it in their own rights. Obviously, you played alongside Pat for a long time. Is he somebody that you continue to talk to and are in contact with? And how about how he's doing? Last time I checked, over in LA for the Chargers, he was at least coaching there last I checked.
Yeah, he's still with the Chargers. I talked to him probably a lot more through text message. You'll catch up here and then. It's a good thing about having a friend like that is to where, hey, I'll catch you when I see you. I know he's busy, but he's always got time to pick up. But no, he's doing really well.
And have you ever been able to gather at all whether he wants to stay in the pros or whether he's open to be a college coach? I know you can't always speak for another man, but don't know if you've heard him say or not.
Yeah, I think that's down the road. I think that's one of those things. I think, like you said, this is his, I think, second year with the Chargers, so he's still getting his feet wet. So I think once he's ready to make that decision, when a program that takes him will do well, college, high school, what have you.
I made a video last year where I threw his name in the hat, just somebody to think about if something had happened. Obviously, not wishing Neil would get fired or anything like that. At that time, it was hot, and I said, hey, look, you never know. I mean, he definitely, the running back room we had, the offensive line, I think he knows a scheme. He probably remembers that thing, that you guys ran with Rich Rod. What do you think about that crazy kid, Pat McAfee, that you knew back in the day? Would you have ever envisioned, or was he a guy that always stood out? And then could you have ever envisioned he would be the star that he is today?
I think so, yes. Pat, McAfee, he followed a different drum. He beat to his own drum. And I think that his hard work and putting everything down, even from doing comedy before with the Colts. Everything he put his mind to succeeded. So, definitely, you can see where he's at now. He's definitely earned it, and he's doing well. Very proud of him.
Awesome.
Now, the last time I read something on you or heard you, Steve, talking about what you're doing nowadays, you were a chef. Are you still a chef?
I'm always going to be a chef. So, yes, I did go to culinary school, yes, now. But more now I'm doing, raising kids and doing the daddy daycare.
Gotcha. Okay. But I'm sure you still love to throw some good food on the griddle or the fire or the grill or whatever it is you cook with, man. Right?
Oh, definitely. Whatever I feel like eating, I can make it. That's what makes me happy. That's why I wanted to go into cooking.
And I bet your other half and your children love it, right?
They'll say they don't, but they do. they luck up.
What's your favorite dish that you make, man?
Shoot, I think there's a lot of them. I think for me, I think roast are one of my favorite just because of covering a home. It reminds me of, but pretty much I could throw down anything.
Okay.
Favorite Jay-Z song?
Oof. I don't know about a favorite one. I'll say my favorite album is the Blueprint album, but it's hard to pick to one song because it's it's been so much motivating. It's definitely top of my playlist.
I know that's been your favorite artist, or at least I remember from years ago you said that.
Yeah, he's been probably since high school.
Speaking of music, would you like to see West Virginia change their entrance at the football games and play some kind of cool music, or do you think they should stick with what they're doing now? Because that's something Paul and I have talked about a lot. Yeah. We even asked Ren about it the other day.
Yeah, I think what the tradition is, I think it's a good thing just because, we like to sing our fight song when we win. But I think it's one of those things, too, it's been around for so long. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Okay, right. That's fair.
I think if people look at the Virginia Tech theme and how they do things, and that's so hype, and that's a one-of-one type experience. I think Couz got to go do that last year and at Virginia Tech. That's just something that, he said it was overrated.
Underrated, yes.
Virginia Tech, that's definitely.
I mean, overrated. Sorry, overrated.
But that's definitely a great song to listen to. But I think just playing our fight song, I think that's our colors. That's who we are. That's what West Virginia bleeds. And hey, I like it.
So moving on TCU here. Do you have any other burning questions you got for Steve Couz?
No, man, I'm ready. I'm okay. Good.
So first of all, heck of a first quarter of the season for this team. To be 3-1 after these first 4 games really couldn't have asked for much more. To think this team would have been 4-0 would have been, we're talking about a less than 5% chance for that. I think with this team and some of the deficiencies it has, and let's be honest, there are a couple deficiencies, but man, what they do well, they do well. And on both lines of scrimmage, this team, in my opinion, top 2, top 3 in the conference on both lines of scrimmage. Can that carry over to Fort Worth and get this team a victory on the road? And have you seen that running back from TCU, by the way? That kid, Monty Bailey, is explosive.
Yeah. No, it's definitely. I think we put our the last 3 games we put our brand of football down, and if we just do what we need to do defensively, offensively, special team wise, we definitely can win. I think we can hang with any team out there. It just hopefully our Saturday's our day.
Yeah. Do you what are your thoughts specifically about that Bailey kid from TCU? What are your when you watch him as a runner, what do you think about him?
Oh, he's got the complete package. I think he's definitely going to be playing on Sunday, and hopefully, I hope he doesn't have his best game against us. Hopefully we can get him on the ground. I think that's one of those things to where the defense has been flying around. That's definitely on brand for us, our type of football, and just if we can do that each week, we definitely have chances doing every Saturday.
Yeah, they've been tackling well too. I think last I looked, West Virginia was second in the Big 12 in least amount of missed tackles. So right behind Cincinnati. So, I think that's, Neil made that an emphasis in the offseason and in camp. And I think it's showing on the field. And they're definitely going to need that on Saturday against Bailey for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I just had a guest on my show, tight ends coach for the Mountaineers, and he talked about how this winter and this summer, it was definitely an emphasis on, hey, not missing tackles, going after it. Those plays matter. Keeping it 3rd and long instead of 3rd and short, making it more manageable for the field, for the team.
Right.
So, I'm not a professional at all, Steve. But I can, I know how to watch film and I know how to break down this a little bit. What is it, and I'm not trying, I know you're a positive guy and you want to talk positively about the kids and everything, but what is it about this receiver room right now that the inconsistencies there? Do you have an opinion on it? Is it because the quarterback went down and maybe that has something to do with it, or have they just not found the rotation, or is the talent not in the room? Can you speak to that at all?
I think the talent is definitely in the room. These are all this is all Neil's guys he picked. I think it's just we haven't found the rhythm. I think that's one of those things to where sometimes you just need a big play or even a play that's not coming out of nowhere. I think we just need more confidence for the team. I think with our game plan offensively, we haven't put it all together yet. But hopefully, these young guys can step up because I think with the quarterback situation with Nico in there, I think definitely, you can interchange both of them and both bring a lot to the team.
Absolutely. How about Blaine Stewart, though, by the way, man?
Great
that
story.
Guy has done an incredible job with the tight ends. Obviously, Coach Stu is somebody that's very close to a lot of our hearts. And the way that ended, you just love it for Blaine. And I think he's going to be a rock star, by the way. I think he will be a head coach someday. It's only a matter of not if, but when.
Yeah.
Colt Taylor's probably the best team, maybe outside of CJ, maybe the best player in that offense. And he's really coached that kid up. I watched the LSU tape when he came out of LSU. Obviously, I saw that he was mobile and big and had like Neil said, he's open by birth. I expect him to be as consistent as quickly as he has been. And Blaine Stewart's done a heck of a job with that kid, for sure.
And his blocking has been
That's
really
been
good.
a surprise.
Yeah.
Those are the plays and things that don't come up in the stat sheet. Blocking, doing those things that are dirty jobs. But definitely Brandon's doing a great job. But speaking to Blaine, even having him on, he's been around football his whole life, and he's doing a great job. I think this is his 6th year. He said coaching. And I think it's in his blood, and he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I think Coach Brown bringing him onto the staff was an absolute home run. I mean, you got number one, you've got the connection there to West Virginia, which I think is important to have on the staff somewhere. And then you've got his experience with Pittsburgh. He knows what it takes to play at that level because he's been coaching that type of talent for 5 years now or whatever it is, or 4 or 5, whatever it is. But he's seen it every single day.
Yeah,
and that's ultimately what those guys want to achieve is to get to the next level. And I just think it was a home run hire for Coach Brown to bring him on the staff. I know the fans loved it. I know that.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that you hear fans complain about hires and stuff. I didn't hear one complaint about Blaine Stewart. I'll be honest with you. It was pretty unanimous on that one.
Yeah, no, Blaine is, like I said, he's a great kid as well, and he knows what he's doing there. But for him being a West Virginia guy, being born there, being around that program so long, he brings a different feel and understanding of what it is to play Mountaineer football. Because I'll say it anytime, like we have the greatest fans, and it's definitely a family vibe to that team. So I'm happy that Neil Brown is keeping that and keeping it in the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you pointed out, and then Josh Eilert mentioned this the other day with Deshaun and those guys on the basketball staff. They've got equity in it, and when you have equity in something, that means that you have more invested than a normal person, maybe that wasn't from West Virginia. It's just there's extra. Doesn't mean that those guys are going to work harder or anything, but so the guys that are from West Virginia. That have either grown up around the program or, like in his case, Coach Stu is legendary now, for what everything he did and the speech that's played before every game. And I'm so glad to see he's been able to blaze his own trail because it's been really, really nice to see. Something I've always wondered really quick about you, Steve. What is your favorite play as a Mountaineer? Can you even, nail one down? Is it the run against Georgia, the 52-yard where Chris Fowler said, "I'll never forget." He gets in the open field and he's got great speed. I'll never forget that.
Oh man, there's so many, but I'll say what coaches say. Favorite plays, victory formation, and then again,
that's a cop out, Steve. Come on, man.
That's the best play in football, man.
No, I'm kidding, man.
Yeah.
You got too many to remember. That's the problem. You can't recall just one.
That's a good problem, man.
It is a good problem, man.
Right.
Hey, I'm not just doing it. I'm not just blowing smoke, man. I really am not. Some of my favorite memories as a Mountaineer fan is watching you, man. It really is. I was at the Louisville game in 2005. My dad and I we had already decided if something don't change, because we live like 3.5 hours away, and we had to drive back home.
Yeah,
and we were like, if something don't turn, we're leaving at the end of the third quarter. And by gosh, it turned, and it's now one of the most memorable moments in Mountaineer football history. It's the day the Pat White, Steve Slaton, Owen Schmidt era was born. And I'll never forget that game, man, as long as I live. And you were a huge part of that. And matter of fact, that day you were running all over Louisville that day, man. It was crazy. What did you have, 6 touchdowns or something crazy like that in that game?
Yep.
Wow. It was I thought it was 6.
Yeah, we were behind. I had to make up some time.
Was
that one of those games when everything? Were you in a zone? Like, was that one of those games where you were in a zone and everything was slowing down for you?
Oh, definitely. It was one of those things to where coaches say, I know it sounds cliche, it's like, hey, it's not over to the fat ladies things, and it's one of those things to where we made the plays that we needed to make to get back in that game. But it's one of those things that you just feel it because it can happen at any time. So you don't really know. It's really just enjoying that moment and and rolling with the momentum.
I heard Pat say on a podcast not long ago that he was actually considering leaving the program before that game. Did you know that at the time? Did you know it?
We've had conversations. I feel I might have said I was leaving too, but I think it was just one of those things to where when you're ultra competitive and not being able to getting to play, it eats at you a little bit. But it's one of those things. It's a good thing he did stay around, right?
Absolutely,
man. It was a perfect marriage. Can you speak real quick to one thing I wanted to ask you? So obviously this RPO scheme that Coach Brown employs has some similarities to what you guys did, especially in the run game. Is it exactly the same, or I mean, it's a zone running scheme, correct? Both are
Yeah.
zone running schemes, and is that where the similarities end, or is there, because I know I tell people all the time that there's more to it than just reading the backside defensive end.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's a lot because that's a thing too. Where about coaching is that the other guy's allowed to have a truck next. He can counter off you, but no, it's I'll say for our running scheme, it was one of those things to where it was fairly new, so you didn't get to see a lot of it. So I think now with this scheme now, these kids have seen it in high school. They've seen it on different levels, so it's a little different because it's not as new. But it's
Yeah,
very much similar, same zone scheme, outside, inside zone. So yeah, it's similar in that, but it's something that these guys, the other team, have seen too.
Have you ever considered getting into coaching, Steve?
No, I don't have the heart for it. I help my kids out, but I don't think I have to do it as a full-time job, week in and week out.
I got you. It's not for everybody. Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yep. Well, Steve, I don't have a whole lot else for you, but I would, I want you to plug your show again, if you don't mind, and just tell people where they can find you on X and all that too, if you don't care. And we certainly want people to come and find you guys, and we want that thing to blow up on YouTube.
All right. Well, Couz and Mountaineer Paul, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. On Twitter, you can find me at Steve23 Slaton. My podcast, along with Maddie Stout, is the Burning Couch podcast. So I think we're running every week. Our YouTube is doing a little better. And if your fans become my fans, love to have you guys on my show too as well.
Definitely want to do that. We'll talk about that on X or whatever, because I definitely want to come be a part of that for sure.
Yeah.
It's been 32 minutes with truly one of the legends of West Virginia football history. I mean, you think about Pat White, you can't help but think about Steve Slaton, can't help but think about Owen Schmidt. These are the legends, man, that really made it go for us as young kids watching the Mountaineers. And as days have gone by, we still revisit those memories. And it's been just a blast from the past to have you on, Steve. And hopefully we can become more than just having each other on each other's show. I'd love to become your friend, man. I think you're an awesome dude. Wish you the best in life. Wish your kids the best in life. And we'll hopefully be on your show going forward. We'd love to keep this thing going. And our fans are loyal to our shows, but certainly I guarantee you'll get some of our guys over to yours for sure.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, they're really, really good people. And Mountaineer fans are Mountaineer fans,
Yep. Yeah.
With Matty leading that thing, you guys will take. I mean, he's like a podcast guru, man. From what I understand.
So that's why I partnered up with him.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, man. And with you on there, it's a great team. Great show over there you guys are running. Yep, absolutely.
It's all right, you guys. You've been here for it. This has been another edition of Mountaineer Paul Talks Football. This episode is over, guys. Until next time, we are out.
This is for Cameron. Cameron.